A new leak from the Department of Justice, a secret grand jury testimony of James Comey that was unknown that he did back in 2021, and a 1 hour interview between Special Prosecutor John Durham and the prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia convinced them that there was no case against James Comey. I tie all of this new reporting together here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. So we all know now that the FBI director, former FBI director James Comey, was indicted effectively by Donald Trump's hand-picked Insta-Prosecutor Lindsey Halligan over the objection of all of the career prosecutors in the office responsible for investigating James Comey. They concluded that he did not leak information to the Washington Post or to any press entity to try to embarrass the Department of Justice. They did not recommend a prosecution. And now we know from new reporting that ABC News is reporting a couple of things that we never knew before. First of all, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. already looked at James Comey. James Comey has been looked at like proctologist style by John Durham, the special prosecutor, by the D.C. prosecutors, and now by the Eastern District of Virginia. And everybody gave him a clean bill of health except for Lindsey Halligan, Donald Trump's 8-year lawyer, special prosecutor, lawyer that helped him in Mar-a-Lago, whatever she's supposed to be. But the new reporting I want to focus on is a couple of elements. John Durham, who spent 4 years, was handpicked by Bill Barr, Donald Trump's own attorney general, to look into whether the Russia investigation, the Russia collusion investigation, known as Crossfire Hurricane, started earlier under the Obama administration, and all, whether that was legitimate or whether there were crimes committed. John Durham spent 4 years, 2 presidents. He issued a 304-page report. He spent tens of millions of taxpayer dollars. He indicted 3 people, none of them named James Comey. And he concluded and told, according to this new leak, because it's a very leaky DOJ right now, because this is the resistance, He told in an hour-long interview in August that there was no facts that he had to support charges against James Comey. He will be, John Durham, a lead witness if it gets that far on the dismissal of the indictment or, God forbid, a trial of James Comey. John Durham gave James Comey a clean bill of health on perjury, plain and simple. That's new fact number 1, leaked through the Department of Justice. So when Lindsey Halligan got to her desk, such as it was, 48 hours after she was appointed, having never been a federal prosecutor, she was met with a memo that was prepared by the team in the Eastern District of Virginia, who had spent 2 months investigating whether there were charges that could be brought against James Comey, because that's what they were told to do by the Department of Justice and Donald Trump. And they concluded there was no case to be brought, no sustainable charges, criminal charges against James Comey. How did they conclude that? An hour-long interview with a special prosecutor to be downloaded on his 4-year investigation. They also spoke to the prosecutors in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, who also looked at James Comey, and they also learned that there was a grand jury that we did not know about. Second piece of information that's new here, a grand jury that was impaneled back in 2021 that James Comey testified in front of, right, as they were trying to get to the bottom of the leaks. And they also concluded that there was no case against James Comey. So we've got all of that. All of this strengthens the hand of James Comey, his lawyers, to get this indictment dismissed and to prove vindictive prosecution. There's a reason that prosecutors don't bring cases like this, and the principles of federal the principles of federal prosecution of the Department of Justice manual says so. In fact, John Durham, this special prosecutor that just cut the legs out from under Lindsey Halligan, in his own report, at the end of his own report, 304 pages when he issued it, said the following. He said, if this report and the outcome of the special counsel's investigation leaves some with the impression that injustices or misconduct have gone unaddressed, it is not because the office concluded that no such injustices or misconduct occurred. It is rather because not every injustice or transgression amounts to a criminal offense, and criminal prosecutors are tasked exclusively with investigating and prosecuting violations of U.S. criminal law. He's speaking to you, Lindsey Halligan. A career prosecutor, a special counsel appointed by Donald Trump's own attorney general, concluded there was no crimes committed by James Comey. The U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. concluded there were no crimes committed by James Comey, and he testified to a grand jury. And yet, over the objection of career prosecutors in your office that you inherited on day one, who told you there's no case because the Department of Justice manual says that you cannot bring a prosecution unless there's probable cause to believe that you will be able to sustain that conviction all the way through appeal. Beyond a reasonable doubt standard being applied. So it's probable cause, like it's more likely than not that I will be able to win my case in prosecution beyond a reasonable doubt and get that upheld through appeal, then I can bring the case. She can't bring the case. And I love hearing Lindsey Halligan, by the way, in her comments about why she brought the prosecution. Here's what she says about that. She says she grew a brain and she learned about the separation of powers. Donald Trump's busy assaulting states, trying to federally hostilely take over Oregon and California as we speak, calling federal judges, including ones that he appointed, insurrectionists and terrorists. And here's what she has the cojones, the brass ones, to say out loud. Why she brought the indictment. The balance of power, you mean among the three co-equal branches of government, is a bedrock principle of our democracy, and it relies upon accountability and a forthright presentation of facts from executive leadership to congressional oversight. You want to see the clip again of the thing that she got her grand jury, because I'm sure she misled them, to indict James Comey on, but barely 14-9 in the vote? Let me show you the clip of the exchange between Ted Cruz and James Comey. Play the clip.
Russian assets. All right, let's shift to another topic. On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time has expired. This investigation of the president was corrupt. The FBI and the Department of Justice were politicized and weaponized. And in my opinion, there are only two possibilities. That you were deliberately corrupt or woefully incompetent. And I don't believe you were incompetent. This has done severe damage to the professionals and the honorable men and women at the FBI because law enforcement should not be used as a political weapon. And that is the legacy you've left.
Okay, so what's that all about? Who leaked? Who leaked to the Washington Post? The Office of Inspector General for the Department of Justice concluded that it was Andy McCabe who was his second in command, and that he challenged Andy McCabe about it. Comey did, and McCabe lied to him. That was a conclusion of the Office of Inspector General, also a piece of evidence to be used by James Comey. That's it. That's the entire, you're like, isn't there more? Where's the smoking gun? There is no smoking gun. And if there was, John Durham put it into a bucket of water. There's no case against James Comey. This is all about vindictiveness, retribution, retaliation. He doesn't like that James Comey told him off or refused to pledge loyalty and has been on a tour ever since writing books against the Trump administration. He doesn't like all that. Even though, in retrospect, James Comey contributed likely to Hillary Clinton losing to Donald Trump because he had to announce the email server investigation was going on because he had all these problems in his own office with people like Andy McCabe undercutting him. So he had to take to the podium at exactly the wrong time and say that we're looking into Hillary Clinton's emails when she needed momentum to win an election against Donald Trump the first time. So it's sort of a mixed bag when you talk about James Comey, but he shouldn't be prosecuted as a result of it. And so we're going to continue to follow what happens here. But this is like manna from heaven, this leaky Department of Justice. And this is how the resistance is operating. It is leaks like this that come out from within the Department of Justice. I know, I'm sure Pam Bondi and Stephen Miller and Kash Patel will be shaking their fists. We need to get to the bottom of leaks. Leaks are killing our administration. But leaks are going to be the death of you because these are loyal civil servants who are getting out information to the public and through the press. And they have a good role model. I mean, one of the counts that the grand jury rejected against James Comey was that he leaked to Daniel Richman, a professor at Columbia Law School who was a good friend of his, who used to be an assistant U.S. attorney in New York, where Comey was the U.S. attorney, leaked to him information about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and the Steele dossier and all sorts of things to make Donald Trump look bad. That was investigated. There was a conclusion that was not that did not happen. And certainly the question and answer between James Comey and Lindsey Graham at that same Senate hearing about, do you remember that you got a memo about Hillary Clinton trying to bring up all sorts of information about a candidate named Donald Trump? No, I don't remember that. You can't convict somebody on lack of memory for perjury, Lindsey. I continue to follow it all right here. I'm glad you're here on Legal AF and MeidasTouch Network. Take a moment, subscribe to the MeidasTouch Network, but also come over to Legal AF YouTube, show it some love. We're moving rapidly towards our 1 million subscribers, but we need more help. We got to turn that odometer. The bigger we get, the more your voice is heard. No outside investors, no paywall. And then help us over on Legal AF Substack as well as we continue to grow that pro-democracy community with live reporting every day, only on Legal AF Substack. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.